welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and our guest today is Hillary Doe, National Director of the Roosevelt Institute Campus Network. Is that the whole title?
That's right.
Okay. Thanks, Hillary, for coming in from
Thanks
D.C.
for having me.
Maybe you're happy to leave D.C. and get a little fresh air in New York.
Yeah, it was great to be in New York. I love coming here.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go slow because you have a big agenda, and we want to squeeze as much as we can into a short period of time.
Yep.
For starters, what is the Roosevelt Institute for Campus Network? Is that the whole time?
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Okay. The Roosevelt is a legacy of Eleanor and Franklin Roosevelt, right? So we know that much. Now you continue.
Yep. Right. So the Roosevelt Institute Campus Network actually started as an independent organization. So it was started by students in dorm rooms across the country.
Just spontaneously?
Spontaneously. You know, it was after the 2004 election. We realized that traditional forms of political activism, just asking young people to knock on doors and register voters, weren't sufficient. You know, we wanted to engage more deeply and substantively in our political debates. So we started think tanks, essentially, mini think tanks at campuses across the country, focusing on local...
That makes sense, think tanks on college campuses.
Exactly,
right.
But it was something that people hadn't done before. So they just were founded by students, started spontaneously at these different campuses, and then we formed a 501c3 and started recruiting and starting them nationwide. We ended up merging with the Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt Institute because they recognized that this was a living legacy of the Roosevelts in the sense that we were really doing, you know, progressive work, creating a new deal for young Americans across the country of our own design, a living legacy. So we merged with them and have been growing ever since.
Okay, so now let's jump forward to today's agenda. So you're a group of active, what is it, Generation Y? Is that
Millennials
your group?
or Generation Y. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just jump forward to especially why you're here. And just as a background, your group is called the Millennials too. What does that mean, Millennials?
So millennials technically defined as anyone born between 1980 and 2000.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So your group, the Millennials, was a popular group in the last presidential election. In fact, some of you were voting for the first time in a national election. And the group, as I could say, was eager to vote for hope and saw, if anything, a role model that they could relate to in government that represented diversity, represented change. And as a result, you became active. Now, jumping forward, I'm not going to ask you, but let's just stop for a second.
Yeah.
Is your group have a partisan bent?
No, I mean, we're progressive in the sense that FDR was progressive, right? We're interested in new ideas and innovation and entrepreneurship to, you know, sort of improve the lives of our students and their communities.
Right, almost like if anybody embodied the American dream, it was Franklin Roosevelt.
Right.
The opportunity.
Right, and the creation of a new American dream, actually, that really represents, you know, the values and priorities of young people across the country.
And that would work in the 21st century.
Right, exactly.
Okay, all right. So having said that, your group recently received a grant from the Peter Peterson Foundation, and we have had folks from the Peter Peterson Foundation on our show before. And you were charged, along with 4 or 5 other groups, organizations, you were charged with with coming up with a solution to a big problem. What is that problem now? How many trillion dollars is that problem?
A few trillion, yeah. No.
Right, yeah. With coming up with solutions to the national debt.
Yeah.
That's a mighty big menu.
Yeah.
There's no one, I don't think, that no matter what bent politically that person is, that doubts that the national debt cannot be sustained and could eventually really crimp the superpower of the United States. So how long have you been working on this?
So we actually started working on it in 2009, I guess, and started an initiative called Think 2040, where we started engaging young people across the country to have conversations about what they wanted America to look like in 2040. You know,
2040?
For the year 2040.
Why did you pick 2040?
So it's the year when some millennials will be starting to enter the Social Security rolls.
Okay. It's almost like the baby boomer era.
Right, exactly. And you know, we're the largest generation of Americans ever to grow up in this country, the millennials. We're bigger than the baby boom. Gosh, I don't even know the number anymore.
But exceeds the baby boomers.
Yeah, it exceeds the baby boomers. And as we're moving forward, a lot of people are talking about millennials when they enter the roles as being another major, sort of strain.
Well, you guys, you millennials are going to be the ones that have to foot the bills when all these interest charges and all these entitlements.
Exactly.
Really, when the floor falls out from under.
And so the reason that we started doing the project was because the president announced his deficit commission, and suddenly young people across the country recognized that whatever decisions our leader in power made today about investments in our social safety net, investments in education, cutbacks in order to sort of mitigate this budget crisis, we were going to inherit the consequences of those challenges and needed to have a voice in the process, have a voice in shaping, whatever plan we wanted to take, whatever action we wanted to take to both stabilize our debt long term and achieve the 2040 we wanted to inherit.
So have you come up with any solutions?
We have. So because of it's a Pete Peterson grant, we're unveiling that on March 24th or 25th at the summit.
So you have to keep it under wraps.
So we have to keep it a little under wraps. But the most exciting part about it was that we democratized the budget process. All of the other organizations that were participating have a lead economist or a political bend, an ideology. And so they were presenting a plan that would ascribe to their ideology and stabilize the debt over time. What we did was ask thousands of young people what they wanted the budget to look like.
Did you have specific questions? Did you have a questionnaire?
We didn't actually do a questionnaire. We have a website, think2040.org.
And so what are the things you asked? You ask the participants?
So we asked people to start at a high level because a lot of people, the average college student or the average American, frankly, can't prescribe solutions to some of these challenges.
And so many millennials and so many adults and so many whatever generations doesn't have the level of financial financial literacy in this country isn't so well honed.
Right. So we asked them a few broad questions.
We
asked them what their top 3 values were that they wanted our country to reflect in its policies.
Did you give them choices?
No, we let it be open. We offered some suggestions, but there were like 50 suggestions. We were trying not to be leading. And then we allowed them an other box as well. So we got values. Then we got priorities. If you needed to invest in only 3 things, if there was a constraint, where would you invest? What sort of education outcomes or environmental outcomes or fiscal outcomes would you invest in? And then with that information from thousands across the country, we formed working groups of people, young people, who have a deeper knowledge and a deeper interest in some of these issues, sort of more financial literacy, more policy wonkish knowledge on these things, to really write a budget, to write a budget that solves the debt crisis and ensures our making investments.
Are you in competition with the Congressional Budget Office?
We're actually having all these plans scored in the same way that the CDO scores budgets, to ensure that we did it in a sound way. And there wasn't one economist among us, but I think it should be inspiring for the country.
It was values of the general population of your group.
A representative sample of millennials across the country. So
tell me something. Have you been following the process in Congress?
We follow it a little bit, yeah. I mean, I think we're trying to break out of the daily conversations that people are having. So many young people identify as independents these days, and it's not necessarily because they're not Democrats or Republicans or because they're moderate. It's because so many of our issues are kind of off the spectrum. People aren't talking about them. So we're really trying to make a budget that represents, in unprecedented investments.
But going forward in a practical manner from this, in a pragmatic manner, there's some other very good values from this. It does bring young people, your group people, into the political stream and does prepare folks for leadership and political roles. There is not a huge overload of leaders right now in this country. All of us are kind of looking to see where is the next candidate coming from for this legislation position or that national position. So it does prepare for that too.
It does.
Yeah. But looking ahead now at this debt crisis, what are folks doing about it at your age?
So I think before the last year, a lot of young people weren't engaged in this issue whatsoever. But what's really engaged them isn't necessarily, the outcomes of the debt crisis in 30 years. It's hard to get young people to think about that. It's about the immediate investments that they want to make that they see aren't being made. So a lot of young people rank investments in education, sort of lowering the barrier to entry to higher education, lowering the cost of education, as really important initiatives. And when people say, sorry, millennials, you can't make those investments because we have this budget crisis. That gets people interested in the budget crisis. It gets our generation motivated and catalyzed to say, we need to figure out a way to both fix that and continue investing in our priorities.
This is a country that until the latest economic debacle wasn't saving, and this is still a country in general, across many generations, that don't do much about their retirement.
Right.
So to get folks in your group to think about 2040, that is a huge leap.
Yep, it is a huge leap, but they've been really open to it.
So what do you expect to happen? All right, you're going to present this to Peter Peterson, and while you guys are doing all this, why Washington D.C. will continue. To what do you expect to come out of this?
So we hope that the Pete Peterson Summit the Fiscal Solution Summit's what they're calling it, will really help us create a voice in the national debate for young people so that when they're making these decisions, they don't just forget our generation. So many times they sort of co-opt the generation and say things like, oh, we can't steal from our grandchildren, so we need to cut this or that program. But instead, they should just be asking this generation because we're ready to be engaged. Right. So we're hoping to open the door to that and be a real partner in the process.
Well, you hear, we're burdening our children, we're burdening our grandchildren, but no one is really speaking to the children.
Right, exactly.
And the grandchildren.
And so we're speaking up, and it's exciting to be on the same stage with all of these famous economists.
You know, in the last presidential election, the millennials had a big voice. In the 2012 elections, which was not presidential, it was the voice was much more muted.
2010,
or 2020, you guys need to vote. Need to use your power with the vote.
Definitely. And in the 2010 election, actually, it was pretty normal participation for our generation. But because we came out so heavily in 2008, it didn't look as much. I think we will come out strong in 2012 if we keep doing what we've been doing, which is engaging in governance. So working every single day, not just during election cycles, on issues. And when the administration and Congress and both political parties offer young people the opportunity to present their own ideas into the process to help shape legislation every single day and not just once every 2 years, you'll see much bigger youth turnout.
And also active in the primaries.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where.
Exactly.
Well, we're out of time. But I wanted you to promise to come back after you unveil your solution.
I'd love
because we would like to send that out, that message. We're global. We'd like to send that message out across the world.
Right.
What some of the suggestions are, and hopefully our congressmen, our legislatures will. I guess they'll all be put together to package it. Well, listen.
Yeah, there are so many innovative ideas in there. I can't wait to share them, and I appreciate your support.
And so we'd like to hear some of those innovative ideas. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming into New York.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. You're watching Getting Your Money's Worth. I'm Judith West, and our guest was Hillary Doe, National Director of the Roosevelt Institute, who has some wonderful ideas for solving our country's debt problems. Thanks for watching.